Welcome everyone to our District 35 Leadership Expo. I am Kris Pool, your moderator for this evening, and I would like to introduce our District Director, Terry McGregor. Terry.
All right. Thank you, Kris. Thank you everyone for joining. And thank you for sharing your time with us this evening here to hear about the experience and the benefits of serving as a district leader. So serving in those leadership roles outside of your club. There are lots of opportunities if you are in a position and you think, what can I do next, right? Just when you think you've done it all, there's not. You come talk to us. We have plenty for you to do to keep you busy, keep you learning, keep you growing. And that's what we're going to hear about tonight. So welcome to the Expo. Our panel tonight is going to be led by past district director, Kris Pool, who is also a distinguished Toastmaster. Kris has been a member of Toastmasters since 2005. She's currently a member of 3 clubs: Cream City Communicators, Plymouth Toastmasters, and Sheboygan Toastmasters. She is also currently serving 4 officer roles between the 3 clubs. She's been a district secretary, now known as the administration manager, area director, newsletter editor, DLC committee chair, club growth director, program quality director, and district director. Kris is working on multiple paths through Pathways and will be evaluated tonight for the Presentation Mastery Path Level 5 elective project, moderate a panel discussion. Being a district leader definitely provides additional occasions to give speeches and work through the paths. Kris will introduce this evening's panelists, spend about 25 minutes on Q&A with them. Then she'll open it up to our audience for any questions. Please feel free to put your questions in the chat if you wish, or you can hold them to ask at the end of that discussion. We'll wrap up the evening with a few words from Ed Thelen, Distinguished Toastmaster and past District Director. Ed is the current District Leadership Committee Chair, and he'll talk about the nomination process if you are interested in pursuing a leadership position within District 35. So with that, I would welcome Kris Pool and the District 35 Leadership Expo.
Thank you so much, Terry. This is a wonderful evening for myself, for our current and our past leaders, and especially for our future leaders. This is an opportunity to share what we have learned in our leadership roles and what the potential can be for us. We have 4 different people on our panel this evening. We have a former area director and a current area director. I'd like to welcome first Jeff Werwie. He had been a former area director for us. Last year, he did step up in the middle of the year to take over an area director role. We had a vacancy in the middle of the year, and he stepped in to assist. He currently belongs to Southwest Toastmasters down in Franklin, and he has been a member for over 25 years. Our other area director is current right now, and that is Susan Brushafer. She's currently a member of the Menominee Falls Toastmasters Club and previously belonged to the Ozaki and Direct Supply Champion Chatters. She's been with Toastmasters about 20 years. Lots of experience there. Welcome, Susan. Representing the division director role is Karen Polege, Distinguished Toastmaster and our Division Director of the Year for 2020-2021. Yay! Karen belongs to Rasmussen College Toastmasters, Marshfield area, and Eclectic Image, of which Eclectic Image received the Director's Award for 2020-2021. And she's only been at Toastmasters for about 5 years. So this is amazing. It doesn't matter how long you have been in Toastmasters. It's what you do with that experience and how you apply it. That's what is important here. And then we put a lot on this guy's shoulders. Jim Kohli, DTM, whoo, Mr. Bacon himself. Jim has held the different trio roles. He's held all the club officer roles. He has gone beyond the district level, holding a region advisor and international director roles. Jim knows and does it all. And he has a lot of wisdom. We were just talking about retirement, that he is soon to be eligible. He's turned down offers for early retirement. He knows his stuff. Please welcome Jim Kohli. As Terry mentioned, if anyone comes up with questions during this session, please put them in the chat. I can try and include them in my questions, or we'll leave them for the regular Q&A for our audience. I would first like to bring up Susan and Jeff. I'm going to see if I can. Ooh, this is working. I'm bringing all of us on for our spotlight. I'm learning something too this evening. Welcome, Susan and Jeff.
Thank you, Kris.
The area director role, even though it's not an elected position like our division directors and our district top three, the area director is a huge important role within our district and for our clubs. Susan, can you tell me how you view the role of area director and its importance?
I absolutely would love to, and I'm going to start off by saying I wish I would have done it sooner. First of all, I view the role not as a director, even though that's what the title is, but more as a guide, not a manager, and I'm certainly not a spy, because that's kind of been the rumor around that we're spies, and we're not. I'm a resource, which means I provide updates and info on anything District 35 contests, and I can also help with issues that occur within a club. I'm an advisor offering suggestions from other clubs I belong to, and even my area clubs who have suggestions that are really good, and there's a lot of them. I'm a liaison between the club and the district, because the district doesn't know what's going on in every single club, but as an area director, we get to know that. I'm a helper, and so I do reports 2 times a year, and that helps to make sure that the district officers are in touch with everything and are doing what's best for the clubs and the members. And I feel my opinion and my input is always respected, and that is my pay.
Wonderful. Thank you, Susan.
You're welcome.
Jeff has been in Toastmasters about 25 years. We have a lot of experience combined with everyone that's going to be on this panel and even on our call tonight. Jeff is also retired, but retirement, you're going to find out, doesn't mean the end of Toastmasters. There's still so much you have that you can do and that you can offer. Jeff, why don't you tell us a little bit about your role as area director when you held it, and what do you see that role as also?
Sure. Well, thank you for having me this evening. As area director, it was a wonderful experience, really. I didn't know what to expect going into it, but I got a lot out of it. And I see it as a mentor, more of a mentor to the club, not a coach. You're not really telling them what to do, like Susan said, but you're really mentoring the officers, because think about it. A lot of people are coming in as officers for the first time in these clubs, and sometimes need a little mentoring. And also you're really a mentor to the membership as well. And the best way to do that is by example. I think there's a rule that, oh, you've got to attend 2 meetings, but I think you'll find yourself attending more than a couple of meetings, because you really begin to get friendships with these clubs. And by the area director attending the meetings and always taking a role, and a big role with there as in the club, and what that leads to is it raises the game of the club. I can just see them. We're going to have better attendance because the area director, we got a better quality meeting. It really helps them. The other thing I'm going to tailgate on with Susan is it really is a conduit from the district and the division down to the clubs, but more so it's a conduit. You're the conduit between the clubs, because I think a lot of clubs don't have an opportunity to go see what other clubs are doing. A lot of people aren't in multiple clubs, but what happens is it allows them to benchmark. So you kind of help them benchmark by suggesting things maybe you've seen in other clubs, but you'd be surprised how many clubs ask you about the other clubs in the area. What are they doing? How can we do things better? And I think that's really the role, is not, coaching, but just suggesting things. So I try to stay away from the procedural aspect of it, the bureaucratic aspect of it, and more so of you're there as an ongoing guest for a year, and they really invite you into the family. So I see that as the role.
Thank you so much, Jeff. I'm going to bring in Karen Polege, representing our division director. For those of you who don't know the progression, so we have our members, they're what supports us, and they are part of a club. Clubs are part of an area. Area is part of a division, of which we have 7 divisions. And then the divisions are part of our district, and then it goes beyond up through to international. So Karen is at that next level for the division. And Karen, she did do that natural progression. Club officers, area director, division director. Karen, can you share with us what new skills did you learn or that you developed in your roles in district leadership, and how that has helped you professionally and or personally?
Thanks, Kris, and thank you for having me on the panel. As you described, division director is one level up. And that means that when I think ahead and plan ahead, I had to think ahead one step further. As the division director, I was sort of a team leader. And since I had new area directors when I was division director, I had to help them learn their job. But that meant I had to figure out what to tell them in enough time for them to figure out their job in enough time for them to do it. A big part of being a division director is communication. And so that means I had to think about what I was going to tell my area directors in enough time to tell their club officers, in enough time to tell the members, in enough time for those members to do something. I hadn't previously needed to be thinking and planning this far ahead, but I'm finding it makes a lot of sense in a lot of other areas of life with a lot of big projects. Figure out what the end is and then backfill. Another skill that I learned both as an area director and as a division director was networking. Some of you may know that I'm an introvert, and I am a diehard introvert. I was terrified of just talking to people 5 years ago when I gave my first icebreaker. But the cool thing is that with the deck, with other area directors, division directors, people who are looking for potential, people who are looking for those opportunities, they're great people to network. And as a division director, I was starting to look for the next leader. So now I'm not being afraid of networking, I'm helping to facilitate it. That has helped me oodles in my professional life. With every new employee that comes to my department, that pays dividends.
I love it. It helps oodles. I love that word. You don't hear that often enough. Maybe that should be our word of the day. I'm now going to bring in Jim to our spotlight. And like I said, Jim has held so many different roles. He's a part of clubs in both District 35 and out in California. So we just need to clone him so he can be in a couple places all at one time. And speaking of time, Jim, how did you balance the requirements of your role as a district leader in Toastmasters with all the other aspects in your life? How did you do that?
Great question, Kris. And thank you for inviting me to be part of your panel. Work-life balance is a thing that some of us who are in the industrial workforce deal with even before we join Toastmasters. And when you're a Toastmaster in a position of leadership, it can further complicate things quite a bit. So it helps, I think, to set some ground rules with respect to how you manage your time and your priorities. before I was in Toastmasters, my priorities were basically work and family. I didn't really think about other discretionary activities. I enjoy puzzles and reading and movies and going places and doing things, but I hadn't really needed to structure my life around the idea that this is going to be more important than that. So when there's a collision of time management or potential for self-improvement, that'll be more important than finishing the Sunday crossword puzzle and that kind of thing. The way this manifested itself for me as a crystal decision I needed to make had to do with the feeling when I was a district governor in District 35. And I think at the time I was a member of 5 different clubs, and I was following what I'll call not best practices from other leaders who had gone before me, who seemed to be joining as many clubs as they could. And in retrospect, it was clear to me at that time that this really wasn't what being a Toastmaster wasn't about. And joining many, many clubs is not a sign that you're a great Toastmaster, a great human. It might mean that you're trying to go through other phases of life to demonstrate commitment to a cause, but I don't think I would recommend that to anyone. And at that time, I promised my wife, I'll never be in more than 4 clubs again. And right now, I'm trying to make sure I'm in no more than 3 clubs at any given time. Now, that has helped me do some other things. I can't remember if I mentioned this to you, Kris, but even though I'm done serving on the board of directors, I've served on committees for the board of directors since I rolled off in 2018. And I think every year since 2018, I've been in at least 2 and as many as 3 different committees. This is the first year, starting 2 months ago, that I'm not actually on a committee, although I expect I'll be requested to be on a committee in the spring. So back to your question. That was a very long, tedious answer. I think it's important to have a clear sense of don't join as many clubs as you can, because that won't make you a better Toastmaster. It'll mean you're doing less in each individual club and probably getting less out of the experience. Make good choices. Also recognize that when you sign up for a leadership role, you should treat that like it's a club membership in terms of being in 4 clubs or 5 clubs. No, be in 2 clubs or 3 clubs and be a district leader, because it will take that kind of commitment to get things done.
Thank you so much, Jim. And for those of you who only belong to 1 club, that's just fine to stay in 1 club. Terry, or district director, only 1 club. If you want to join multiple clubs because there's different reasons why you are a part of another club, you get something different out of each one. You can give something back. That's why you join a multiple club. Thank you, Jim. Jeff, tell us, what did you enjoy most about your role in district leadership?
I think that the thing that surprised me most was the DEC meetings, these monthly DEC meetings, whatever that stands for, district something committee
District
council.
Executive Committee.
Yes. I didn't know what to expect from that other than, oh, gee, we got to be somewhere. But that was pre-COVID. I loved it. I loved going to different locations. You know, we were at Aurora. We were up at, I think, some community college in the Fox Valley. We were in Janesville. We were in Milwaukee a lot. Everywhere. I loved it because the day went by fast. It didn't seem like work at all. It wasn't work. It was fun. But the biggest key is all the area directors. You got to meet all 27 area directors, and you learn so much because it made you be on your game and say, hey, look, I really need to do better. Here's where I need to be as a Toastmaster, as an area director, as a club president, whatever. The DEC meetings, if anybody is considering being an area director, they're concerned at all, but the DEC meetings in my mind was the highlight of being the area director, because there was a lot of subcommittees that come out of this. For example, like there was a club growth one, and I loved serving on those subcommittees. It was like a brainstorming thing, and it went quick. You had to really work on it. And we had some fun projects too. I forgot the gentleman who's like 90 years old that was area
Tom
director.
Carlson.
Yeah, I like meeting people from the Northeast and Northwest, but we worked on this really simple, great idea of this kiosk. So we had this ongoing little subcommittee about this advertising Toastmasters, and he actually made some, and we worked on it. So there's like a lot of little fun projects. It wasn't all like all right, everybody go out and you got to tell your clubs to do this. No, it wasn't about that at all. And that's what I really loved about the deck meeting. So it was a really pleasant surprise for me with regard to being an area director.
Thank you, Jeff. And as you know, in life, it's not just all roses and sunshine. There are thorns, there is dirt, there is rain, there are thunderstorms. Karen, during your time as a district leader, what did you enjoy the least about the role? Because if we're trying to convince and persuade new members to step up into leadership roles, they need the good and the bad. Karen.
Anytime you've got more than one person doing anything and they are not identical clones of each other, you will at some point end up with conflict. Personality-wise, I don't like conflict. Every personality test I've ever taken tells me that. There are some people it just rolls right off. I'm not one of them. I hear about every single person who's involved, and conflict inevitably hurts. I really didn't experience a whole lot of ugly conflict. There were certainly differences of opinions, especially at the beginning of the pandemic when we were trying to figure out whether we should have speech contests on Zoom or in person, or what to do about some of those things. And that conflict was generally handled really respectfully, with excellent listening and honest care and compassion. So that was great. But it is possible to have some kind of an issue with a person. And I ended up having an area director quit like 3 days into the role before the person really had a chance to, to try something and find out that they didn't like it. And that kind of left a bad taste in my mouth. So I ended up taking over the duties of the area director. And that meant that I worked with that person quite a few times. So although conflict isn't fun, and being the introvert who doesn't like conflict, my natural inclination is to just run away from it, I had to learn how to handle it well. And given my job, given what I do, I'm handling people whose actions I don't agree with on a daily basis. Might as well learn, because you will need to know how to handle conflict. But that was the worst of it for me.
Thank you so much, Karen. And conflict, that is truly a skill of a leader, and how you can handle conflict and handle it well. So thank you for bringing that up. And you also segue very nicely for me into my next question, which is going to go to Susan. And that is, how do you connect the skills that you develop as a volunteer leader here in Toastmasters and what you do for work?
That was an interesting question to pose to me, because I don't work. But that doesn't mean that I'm not busy, because if you think about a business atmosphere, there's so many things that you learn in Toastmasters in general, and especially as an officer, that are transferable to the workplace. But I will tell you, I am also a volunteer for the Richfield Historical Society, and I belong to 2 committees there. You'll find me dressed up in a pioneer costume during our events. And the things that I have learned in the area director role have really transferred over there very nicely, because I'm kind of the new kid on the 2 committees that I belong to, and I'm probably one of the youngest kids that are there. But I have found in the last year as an officer, I'm willing to give my opinion, even though these people have been in the organization so long and have lived in Richfield forever, and I'm not a Richfield native. The other thing is my willingness to volunteer, just like in Toastmasters and leadership, when people say, who can help? So many people jump forward. There's been an incident in not only the last year, but this year as well, where during one of our events, we were looking for somebody to be interviewed on the radio about the event. And of course, my committee went like that. And I got the look and I said, I'll do it. And I had so much fun doing it because of the skills that make you jump in. Talk about impromptu speaking. There's no prep involved with that. I've also found that being in this role, it has fine-tuned my listening skills, because I, as a registered coach, I used to be able to give suggestions, and pretty much that's what they were looking for. But in this case, in this role, I get to listen to what's going on so that I can give feedback to them and help them make the correct decisions. Time management, as Jim was talking about, is very important because there are so many commitments with my other volunteer organization that fitting that together works out well. And then the respect that I'm given, and I had mentioned this a little bit earlier, the respect that I'm given by the officers and the leadership in District 35 makes me understand how important it is to show that to others and to put out plenty of thank yous and to recognize achievements, because that may be the only thanks that they get for what they do.
Wonderful. Thank you, Susan.
You're welcome.
For our audience, get ready to start asking your questions. I've got a final question for Jim here, and then we'll open it up for your Q&A. Jim, Mr. Bacon. Jim loves bacon, anything bacon. That's why I'm calling him Mr. Bacon. I see pictures of bacon and I think of Jim and I send them to him.
Roy likes bacon too, I understand.
Yes, he does. How has serving as a district leader helped you in your personal and professional life?
Good question. I think some of the things that we heard from Susan and Jeff about the area director experience introduce you to the idea that some clubs have got different takes on the Toastmaster experience. Some clubs have members, or they have thoughts about how to run a club that will be very different from how you would run a club if you're running your own club. So one of the aspects of the district leader experience that was very important for me as an area director was learning how to accommodate different perspectives and understanding where there are things that are prescribed and where there are things that are just as valid that aren't necessarily prescribed, that give you freedom to do the things that you want to do as a Toastmaster. As Karen has said before, sometimes when you're an introvert, she didn't say it quite like this, sometimes when you're an introvert, some of these things can be kind of scary. So it was a little bit scary for me as an introvert to think about how much control I should be giving to other people as an area director when I was an area director, because to me, area represented the opposite of structure, and structure was very important. So it allowed me to think about the validity of a less structured approach. And at some point, I also recognized when I think during the second 6 months of my term as district governor, I recognized the importance of not micromanaging people. And by that, I mean, I think I was not as open to some of the ideas that people in the other leadership positions wanted to do. I wanted to do things my way. I knew how they worked. I guaranteed their success and blah, blah, blah. So one of the skills that I had to do with being open to other ideas, listening better, understanding that even though I felt like I had some great ideas, they weren't always the best ideas. And even though I had some ideas, people might win with my ideas, they might win with their own ideas, they might lose with their own ideas, whatever happens to be. This is a growth experience for them. It's not an opportunity to simply be ordered around by an authoritarian. So one of the best skills I got out of this, besides patience and understanding other perspectives, was developing a more inclusive set of styles of influence, I would say. And that's had great impact both in Toastmasters and in work and in my social life.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Jim. It's interesting. I was actually at a crafting event yesterday at our local library to create a vision board. I haven't completed a vision board in several years, so this is my 2022 vision board. And Toastmasters, I want to achieve a DTM this year. I want to practice patience. I want to practice being more kind and enjoy and having joy in the simple things. So when you're talking, the listening, simple, taking it in, that's what my board focused on. So it's interesting. Everything seems to overlap once you get involved here in Toastmasters. All right, at this time, if anyone of our audience has a question or two for our panel, I'm open to that at this time. Come off of mute and ask your question, please. And if you don't come up with questions, I'm going to have to come up with a few more for our panelists here.
Looks like
This
Jeff
is-
Dombleski had a question. So does Jeff.
Okay.
All right,
Jeff
let's go
W.
to. Well, Jeff W., you're on mute.
Now go to Jeff, the other Jeff first.
Okay, Jeff G.
First of all, thank you guys, panel, and Kris for facilitating. I'm learning a lot. I was wondering, as it relates to the area director, I thought you said originally that it's not necessarily a position that is voted on or anything. I guess a little bit more clarity around how you might become an area director. And is it regionally where you're looking at the area that you're currently in for your primary club that you would look for that area director position? If you could expound upon that a little bit.
Sure. Would any of our panelists like to take this, or would you like me to answer? Jim?
Okay. Yeah, the position of area director in District 35 is an appointed position. And the way that people are appointed for this is they have to meet some minimum qualifications. They have to have served as a club president or a vice president of education. That by itself is sufficient. However, you also have to be interested in the role. The district leaders will put out a message when they are accepting nominations. And if they feel like they are not seeing sufficient nominations in an area, they will actually recruit people. They'll reach out and say, Jeff, we noticed that no one in your area has said that they're interested and they haven't self-nominated to be area director. Would you be interested? So the process is one of having multiple channels. We look for people who are interested in the role. If we don't see people who are interested in a role, we will do some recruiting. Regarding your question about location, you can for sure apply for specific areas if you like. But my advice to you would be to think about being an area director for an area that isn't your local area, because you probably already know those folks. And in terms of the growth experiences, you'll probably experience a greater growth experience by coping with clubs that you have no awareness of. They might have needs for different styles of influence. So part of this experience is dealing with the discomfort of the unknown, but knowing it's a safe place and going places you've never been before and attempt to persuade those people to be excellent clubs.
Thank you, Jim. It's some of it, again, it's scary going in and taking on a new role. You're in your comfort zone right now, but let's expand that comfort zone. By the time your year is done as area director, you finally understand it. And now let's keep pushing you. Can you go into that division director role? We did that to Terry McGregor. We saw her move up from the club officer roles, area director, division director, club growth, program quality, and now our district director. Not everyone is on that full trajectory, but it is a phenomenal journey if you get that opportunity. We do have a question in the chat, actually a couple of questions. What was your favorite district role? So let's go, Jim, since you're right here on the spotlight. What was your favorite district role?
Oh my God. So the definition of favorite is an interesting thing because you can think about what your favorite role might be in terms of the joy that you experienced. And I'll have to tell you this, and I've referred to this already. When I was area governor, which is the role we used to have before area director, at the time, I did not think I was having very much fun. But I will tell you that as an introvert, being an area director is the first time you get way, way out of your comfort zone because you know you're going to be dealing with scary people that you don't have anything in common with, and you're going to try and encourage them and motivate them to follow the club success plan and look at how they can strive for excellence and observe Toastmaster values. So even though for me, it felt horrible and uncomfortable at the time, that for me was crossing a huge threshold, and it enabled me to be a division governor and a district leader on up with much greater confidence that I would not have had if I had not done that role.
Thank you, Jim. Karen, same question. What district leadership role have you enjoyed the most?
It's really tough to pick between area director and division director for the reasons that Jim mentioned, and because I had a really great area. The clubs in area N1 were awesome. I got to be a club coach for one of them. It was so fun to get outside the club and suddenly start networking and start working with other clubs. That was fabulous. But I also really enjoyed being division director to do that in a sense at a higher level. And because I had great area directors to work with, and it was a wonderful team. So too tough to pick. It is just a close call. Too close to call.
Thank you so much, Karen. Susan, as a current area director, I'm going to ask you a question, and then Jeff, as a former area director, I'm going to ask you the same question because they are different from pre-COVID to COVID eras. So the question from Deborah is, what are the travel requirements as an area director? Susan.
If you can get to a live meeting or conduct a live visit, it's very much better than doing it via Zoom. However, because all of my clubs have been online since I took this role, it's worked out just well. I mean, just fine, because I can be a part of the meeting. If I visit as a director, I of course am doing a report. If I visit just as a participant or a drop-in, I try to take a role as well. So being a general evaluator lets me give feedback to the club in a non-formal way. So travel, as soon as there's more hybrid as people are moving to, like my home club, I would definitely suggest going to that when possible. But hybrid here in Arizona, it allows me to go to every meeting that I want to and do my reports on time.
Wonderful, thank you. And Jeff, tell us about your experiences of traveling as an area director.
Yeah, well, usually you're assigned an area that's fairly close to where you live. So pre-COVID, it was really easy to attend the different meetings. You know, most people meet in the evening and sometimes maybe at lunchtime. So maybe you have to get a day off, or if it's close by, you can leave your work and run over there for lunch. But I never had an issue with trying to figure out how to visit one of the clubs in my area. I think you'll find out that you're going to visit them more than just the minimum of 2. You'll be there multiple times. So visiting the club is really actually a lot of fun, and the meetings don't last long, right? Some meetings are an hour, some are an hour and a half. And if you're in a closed club, it's an hour. And again, as I mentioned, I love traveling to the deck meetings. And the deck meetings were, I think we had 11 out of the year, and a couple of them were virtual. Some of them were face-to-face. So the travel is really kind of minimal. And people understand if you can't make a meeting here and there, and it's pretty flexible with it. But I think that you'll find that it's not a big deterrent at all. But I just quickly, if I can, just to tailgate on something that Jim said, you know, when you ask about professionally, how has this leadership role helped? I think all those that are on the call here this evening are considering it. Think about every year when you're at work, you sit down and your boss or your supervisor says, we got to do a performance review and you got to set goals for next year. Well, they'll set goals related to work, right? Increase sales 10%. And you know, grow the company by whatever. You get all these work related, but then they're going to ask you for a developmental goal. That's the key thing now, is at least one goal is going to be developmental goal. So I always had people do one of 2 things. One is when I was supervisor, I tell them, hey, why don't you go out and do a volunteer project? You'll get real leadership stuff. Or I say, look, Toastmasters is another opportunity. If you're already in Toastmasters, you can use that. Even if you don't want to move up within your company, you still have to stay strong with your skills. You still have to, retain employment there. It gets competitive. Even if you say, I want to be a junior engineer my whole career, that's fine, but you still need to develop the skills. So leverage that, because every time you reach an award level in Toastmasters, they can send a letter to your supervisor. My HR file is full of letters from on Toastmasters. And then when you serve an area director, right? You get a nice little thing here for your desk, and you can also show your your supervisor that as well. But again, think about it as this way, besides helping Toastmasters, it helps you, and you'll see all the benefits of it from where you work, whether you want to move up in the organization or not. It'll pay dividends the rest of your career.
Thank you so much, Jeff. I love the prop. Absolutely perfect. I have one last question, and then we're going to transition into Ed Thelen's explanation on the nomination process and what's involved there. So Cole posted in the chat, and whoever on the panel wants to jump in first, we only have time for one answer. How much of an impact has your role made on not only the club you are serving, but in District 35 as a whole? So Karen, Susan. Okay, Karen and Jim were both. We're going to give this one to Karen, please.
Okay, first, in the clubs that I've served, there are several people who started to see themselves as leaders because they saw me do it. They remembered who I was. They see me every week. I'm just like them. Well, if Karen can do it, why can't I? The other thing, remember, District 35 would not function without the leadership. We need the area directors, the division directors, the trio. Without that, we wouldn't have speech contests. We wouldn't have events. We would have no communication with the higher levels of Toastmasters down to us. We would have club meetings and that's it. We need our directors. We need leadership, and we need people who care about our Toastmasters, who want to help them get everything they can get by being connected to this amazing international organization. So,
And
yeah, we need you.
all right, wonderful answer. Thank you, all of our panelists here this evening, Susan, Jeff, Karen, and Jim. We're going to transition into Ed Thelen. He is one of our past district directors. He has held all of these various roles himself this year, and you never get done with leadership once you start the journey. You're always tapped into for a special project or a committee, even if you're not taking on an actual specific leadership role for an entire year. We still want you, and we reach out and tap into you because you have those skills that we need to help share with others in our district. So Ed Thelen has been appointed as our DLC chair. DLC is our district leadership committee. He works with a team of 7 people to help find and interview candidates for our district leadership team for our coming up year. Ed, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Madam Immediate Past District Director Kris, and welcome everyone this evening. It still says the screen sharing is disabled.
Can you give Ed access to share? I thought we had that set up. I'm sorry. Okay, now try it, Ed.
Not yet, but I'll try it again. Out there, the stuff popped up like half a
Momentarily,
second
yeah.
after. Okay.
Perfect.
And I'm gonna, there we go. So this is the same, essentially the same presentation I gave the current district executive committee a couple months ago. I forgot to change this slide when I was reworking it. I did resave the file. I did, but this will be a good overview for everyone as far as what the district leadership committee is. Kris gave a very good, very general overview, but you might be wondering what is the district leadership committee, and going forth I'll try to use DLC just because it's nice to use an acronym and shorten it. They evaluate all the candidates for district elected positions, which I will get to in just a moment, and nominate the best candidates that come through that process. They ensure successful elections from undertaking this evaluation, which consists of the following: identifying and seeking qualified candidates, commit to meet on a regular basis to conduct candidate assessments, confirm the candidates meet the qualifications for the positions they have been nominated for. Jim mentioned certain qualifications for area director, so that's part of our process, and ensure that the minimum number of candidates have been nominated for each of the elective positions. Now, Kris just mentioned this, the composition of the DLC first consists of me as the district leadership committee chair, which is myself for this year. There has to be equal representation from each division. It's been mentioned there are 7 divisions. So between those 7 individuals, which have been selected, and myself, those are the 8 members of the district, the DLC for this year. And just as a note, DLC members serve 1 year on the DLC, and they may be reappointed after a 1-year absence from the committee. Therefore, anyone that served on the DLC last year for the 2020-2021 year, none of those individuals could serve again this year. And anyone that will serve this year will not be able to serve next year for the 2022-2023 DLC. I've mentioned a lot about elective roles there, which are the following that will be evaluated by the DLC. Our district director, and the number in parentheses indicates the number of candidates that we need to have put forth for each position. Program quality director. Club growth director. Just as a quick aside, I'm trying to watch the time a little bit because there may be a few questions, but in the question about the role, that I don't necessarily want to say it was my favorite role, but it's definitely the role I learned the most from. I, in a sense, dreaded it because I don't feel I'm any natural salesperson, and the purpose of the role is to create new Toastmasters clubs and get more members into Toastmasters. But it was a great opportunity, especially for another introvert, although interesting that the Myers-Briggs test actually put me as an extrovert as far as getting energy from other people, but people that know me know I'm like Carrot. I'm not good, don't like dealing with conflict, but it was a good role to get out and meet other people outside of Toastmasters and share with them the benefits that we've discussed already this evening from the questions answered by the panel of why these roles are important. And then division director, and we have to have 1 candidate for each division. As mentioned, there are 7 divisions. So if you add those numbers up, that equals at least 11 people that we need to evaluate. I don't know what.
Grand.
Let's see. We'll see if we can start it up. Okay. The timeline that says remainder of 2021, but these are the things that needed to be handled last year. Terry McGregor, as district director, had to appoint a DLC chair, which is, of course, me. And then during November, I had to select the remainder of the district, the DLC committee, so that on December 1st, the recommendation of the members could be approved by Terry as district director. Now to the really important stuff, which is what do we need to cover this year, since we're 10 days into this year, and there's a lot to cover for the committee over the next few months. So I will be definitely working on trying to maintain that work-life balance that Jim talked about. Officially, the call of candidate declarations needs to be done by January 15th. This was actually done early in December as I wrote an article for the district newsletter, and I'm going to.
And already put it in chat.
Okay, well, I just did again, so.
Okay, perfect.
So that was our official call for candidate declarations, but it needed to be done by January 15th, but we want to give people plenty of time. January 31st is the deadline for candidates to declare their intention to run, which is 3 weeks from today. So I have received a few paperwork from a few individuals for positions, but there are a lot more I need to do. So as committee chair, I will be following up with some of the current division directors and other people who can identify candidates, because even though I've been in Toastmasters 23 years and I do know a lot of people, because it has been a couple of years since I've been district director, I don't feel quite as close to the pool of people that would be great potential candidates for these positions currently. In February and March, there is a candidate evaluation process. This evaluation process consists of interviewing each of the candidates that have submitted their paperwork. And then after we have completed all of that, then the committee needs to come together to evaluate who they feel should be put forth for all of the positions that are elected. And I noted on one of the previous slides, because by March 26th, I need to notify our district director of the nominated candidates for the positions and an official report to Terry. Some items after that are on April 9th, which is 4 weeks before our district council meeting. The DLC report and biographical forms are emailed to all members of the district council and posted on the district website. And then finally, May 7th is our district council meeting, where I, as the DLC chair, will give a report to presented prior to the election of the candidates. Now, we've talked a lot about the candidates, and part of the leadership expo has been about area directors, which Jim mentioned are an appointed position within our district. I did put in the newsletter article that I will take the paperwork for appointed positions so I can hold them and transfer them to our incoming district director that will be elected at this May 7th district council meeting. So then they have their pool of names already, at least some pool of names, and I'm sure that person will probably be thinking of people who they think would be good candidates for area director positions. There also are some support positions. Terry mentioned Kris has been secretary, which is now administration manager. There's a finance manager and there's a public relations manager. Those are also things to think of going if you might be interested in that. So there is a lot, even more opportunity than what we've presented here in this almost hour this evening. So, and the deck presentation should have been put up somewhere on the district website too, but I also had a couple of resources which come directly from the Toastmasters website that explain all about the what the DLC is and the district administrative bylaws, and then they have a separate district leadership committee page. In the article, it has links to all of the items, whether it's something that needs to be filled out as part of this process. But there are also a couple of links that tell you what the qualifications for the positions are. Again, just as an example, the one example that was shared, Jim mentioned for an area director, you need to have served as either a president or vice president of education for a club to do that role. And there are succeeding requirements as you move up into higher positions. That is pretty much what I have prepared. So I don't know if anyone has any questions about the process that we have a couple minutes to answer.
I know my personal experience as a potential candidate, completing the paperwork, submitting it, that part is easy peasy. It's that DLC that has the difficult part of compiling the paperwork, interviewing, selecting the candidates and putting them forward. One thing that Ed, he touched on it very lightly, a candidate interview. So if you are putting forward your nomination paper, or somebody else can actually nominate you as well, the DLC is going to interview each of the elected candidates for all of the elected positions. And they go through a couple of different questions about leadership, the values of Toastmasters, a variety of different things. Normally can last about a half hour or so. Don't stress over it. It's be yourself and answer as you naturally would on these different questions.
And just to go back to the kind of the life commitment, and just adding to your point, Kris, when I was interviewing for, I believe it was actually district director, I just found out that my position at work was being eliminated. And so the stress of dealing with a 30-minute interview with the DLC felt very small in comparison to some of the other things I was dealing with in my life. Yeah, it was probably more the first time I went through it at interviewing for club growth director, when it's more new and fresh in your mind. That, yeah, it feels nerve-wracking, but we're Toastmasters, you have a joyous experience in the club, and it's supposed to be more like a conversation, not necessarily just back and forth between the committee and the candidate.
Interrogation. We
Right.
know. Thank you so much, Ed, for sharing that process with us this evening. We have 2 minutes remaining. Jeff, 15 seconds, final words and thoughts. And you're on mute. We can't read your lips.
Final words and thoughts is, I do it again from the standpoint of, I love to see people make it to a speech contest for the first time. So one of the key roles as area director is you got to help put the speech contest together. And when you really encourage the clubs to participate, maybe for the first time, or get people from every club to do it, and they do well, it's amazing to see these people the following year competing again. They just need that little bit of nudge. So to me, that's the biggest self-satisfaction I see out of this, is getting people to encourage that next step to be at a speech contest.
Thank you so much, Jeff. Susan, 15 seconds, final words.
Okay, if you're looking to be an area director, relax. There is a lot of resources available through the district, and the support I've received has been wonderful. I've never been meant to feel like my questions were not of importance. Try to remember that it's all about the clubs you serve. It's not about you personally. And if you really do your best in the role, you'll be a great, successful, appreciated area director.
Fantastic. Thank you for those wonderful words, Susan. Karen, 15 seconds, final words and thoughts.
You're not in it alone. We need one area director for every area, so that's a whole bunch of them. We need one division director for every division, so that's 7 of them. There will inevitably be a whole bunch of first timers, and we already are planning on the job training. You aren't in it alone. Whatever you're dealing with, whether you need volunteers, whether you've got a question, whether somebody did something and you don't know how to handle it, you've got people there. We, meaning the whole entire district, are here to help you succeed.
Thank you so much, Karen. Positive and supportive environment. Jim, final thoughts and words, 15 seconds.
Thanks, Kris. I think if you haven't gone for the area director role, or the roles that follow once you've been an area director, you're not getting the most bang for your buck from your Toastmasters membership. When you go through the club experience, that can change you a little bit. But the leadership opportunities outside the club are the things that will change you a lot. And they'll change you well. They'll change you for life. You really got to give it a shot. Back to you, Kris.
Thank you so much, Jim. People I know are afraid, step out of that comfort zone because I've never done that role before. Toastmasters is about learning, growing, developing new skills. That's what we want from you. And we encourage you to step up into a new leadership role. And we are there to help you. That is the end of our Leadership Expo. I am going to turn things over to our District Director, Terry, for her final words and to close out. Terry.
All right, thank you, Kris. Thank you, esteemed panel. I thought this discussion was just awesome. Sharing your experience, good and bad, sharing what the benefits are that you've seen from serving in these roles. I can't thank you enough for coming here tonight and doing that. I have just two things I want to end with. In Ed's presentation, you saw that he listed like the minimum number of people we need for these elected officers, right? We have to put up, his committee is supposed to put up one division director candidate per division, or 2 club growth directors, 1 PQD, 1 district director. I would just say that there is nothing wrong with choice. So if you hear of someone else running for the role, don't let that discourage you. Put your hat in the ring and go through the process, the election process, campaign process, the election process. You'll learn a lot doing that as well. And there's a lot of opportunity out there. So don't think, oh, so-and-so said they're going to do it. Do it. And I would also encourage you, don't be like me. Kris said, kind of alluded to the fact, like, if don't say no because you've never done the role. I did that a lot. I think I had to be talked into area director like 3 times. And then division director took a lot of, my first response was no. And club growth director, my first 4 responses were no, like, I'm not ready. I don't know how to do that. But I learned, and it's all because of what Susan said, because of the support. So don't be like me. If you think you're ready, I think Tom Carlson said this best. If you think you're ready, it's already too late. So take the leap, join the team. We're a lot of fun. And if you have questions after tonight, please don't hesitate to reach out to anyone on the panel, myself, Jennifer, Jason. We will answer any questions that you have and bring you along with us.
Thank you, everyone. I'm going to stop the recording now. And it